Welcome back to Chapter Chats. Today we're digging into Chapter 9 of Chuck Hodell's ISD from the Ground Up, a no-nonsense approach to instructional design. And this chapter zooms in on evaluation, not just of learners, but of every part of the instructional design process. So let's jump into this. This is a very interesting topic. Very interesting. The first question I have for you, Chuck, is you define evaluation as the quality control element of the instructional design process. Why do you think it's still so often treated as an afterthought in many projects?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, particular to each individual and each group and each course and what have you. But I think the general thing that I see, it's just laziness and a lack of information. So if you don't know that these things are important, you're never going to do them, which is why we talk about, get one course, buy one book, do something in instructional design so you can get a sense of the relationship between what you do with objectives and all the other things that you set up in your design and how you then take that to fruition with evaluation to make sure people actually have mastery.
My next question is, you introduced the concept of the evaluation trilogy: learner-centered, implementation-centered, and design process evaluation. How can designers balance all three when time or resources, or both, are tight?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I think it's a legitimate question for people that haven't thought about this before. So yes, this does take time, but as we talked about when we entered into analysis and the fact that you really usually don't have time for analysis. You're usually not compensated for analysis. And sometimes it's the same in evaluation. And what I have found and what I have practiced is I just assume evaluation is part of this. And not just of the learner, but I want to look at the whole process. I want to make sure that I've produced the best product and that I have implemented the best product. And that's quality control by any other definition. But I think it's incredibly important in professional instructional design.
Mm-hmm. My next question, Kirkpatrick's 4 levels are a staple in ISD. But you mentioned that level 4 evaluations are rarely ever used. What would make a strong case for using all 4 levels in a real-world project?
Well, I think it's important to think about evaluation as, once again, an aid to you as a designer, but also as a tool for clients and sponsors and boards and whatever to be able to say, here's what we accomplished with this. And level 1s, I don't think contribute a lot to that. I'm not a fan of level 1s, as everyone knows, but there is a usefulness for them, and that's fine. You have to do level 2s. There's no, we do level 2s. That's just what you do. How are you going to find out if there's mastery or not? Level 3s, looking out 3, 6, 9 months out. Can they retain it? Can they still use it? The other part of that is it still useful? Is it still relevant? Is it still correct? Those are things you want to think about in evaluation of level 3. And then a level 4, as you mentioned, return on investment, there's some folks that say there's a level 5, which what did you contribute to the larger community or what have you? I put that in a 4. Others legitimately put it in a 5. That's fine, however you decide to do it. But the notion is with a 4 is, what did this contribute to the greater good? The greater good of an organization, the greater good of the students. So really, it's not difficult to measure. I mean, you can spend months doing it with an accounting team, or you can look at it and say, okay, these folks could not do this before. Now they can do this. So now they are employable, or now they are more efficient, or now they provide more to the organization because they have a larger skill set. Those are the kind of things I look at in level 4s. It doesn't have to be dollars and cents, although it certainly can be that. But I think if you put your design hat on and say, okay, what did this actually accomplish? What did it accomplish for the learner? What did it accomplish for the organization? And how does it aid the field in a larger general sense about, okay, now we have more people able to do these things at this level. So I think you can always make a case for a level 4. And I think most designers can, in a small amount of time, come up with some real good data and insights into what that means.
Yeah. Your discussion of performance agreement really stood out. Can you explain why the match between objectives and evaluation tasks is so critical, and what happens when it's missing?
Yeah, performance agreement. This is one of these things that sometimes sits in the closet in professional design because it's not well known, it's not well discussed, and most of the time when people read these books, especially in 5 and some of the others, they think, "Oh, well, I never heard of that before." Probably haven't, because it's just one of these in-house kind of things that hasn't gained any momentum in any other way. But when you think about it, performance agreement is, you said they were going to do this. Can they do that? And to what level can they do that? So if you write an objective that says someone's going to be able to demonstrate something, and your evaluation is they write about it, you have a horrible performance agreement issue. And I can't tell you how many times that's the case. And the more distributed the population, so if you think about online learning and some of the other venues where you're not actually in the room or in the presence of the instructor and the student, sometimes it's much easier just to sign a discussion post. Just tell me about this, tell me about that. But you haven't really been able to demonstrate the skill, which is demonstratable. So I think performance agreement, in the very beginning, if this is your first exposure to this, think about it in terms of quality control again. Can you actually evaluate what you said folks are going to be able to do? And if there's a mismatch there, you got to fix it. You either need to change the objective or change the evaluation task. You can do either depending on your situation and what you're able to do, but you have to do one or the other. They have to match, or you have no legitimacy whatsoever.
My last question. You introduce forensic ISD, which is a term that I absolutely love. You introduce it as a newer approach. Can you walk us through a moment when you or a team used forensics to uncover a course's root problem and how that insight helped change the next design?
Yeah, I mean, forensics is really important in instructional design, especially if you're at a point where you are getting projects that someone else messed up, didn't complete, didn't go as planned, fell off the side of the road, whatever the problem was. They don't call you in to do something forensically unless there's an issue. And most of the ones I've been called into, it didn't take a lot of work for me to figure out where the problems were. Sometimes organizations decided they didn't want to fix them, and that's fine too. They either couldn't afford it or we'll just move on, do something differently. But forensics is a way that you look back, you look at the product, you look at the results, and you ask yourself as a designer, could this have been done differently? Could it have been done better? And if recommendations were going to be made, what would those recommendations be? And I just like it. I talk about it all the time. I just think it's great stuff because it lets me dig into something and get my teeth into a problem and try to fix it. But I'm kind of, you're the same way, Denise. You like to go fix things. So forensics, if it's the first time you've heard it in the realm of instructional design, just think about it and, okay, well, that makes sense. Just go in and look at what exists and see how you can make it better. But you have to go back and find the root cause. Okay, why is this thing not working as well as it could? And you'll always find it. It's usually not that deeply hidden.
Thanks so much, Chuck, for sharing those insights. And thanks, everyone, for tuning into this chapter chat. We'll see you in the next one.